Do y'all remember that game No Law from the Game Awards last year? It's the one that almost looked like a Cyberpunk 2077 sequel. Well, they just revealed a new State of Unreal tech demo, as well as their first dev diary on the development process for this game. And what I want to do today is react to both of those and talk about it in detail, since we don't really have too much else to go off of at the moment. But before we get into it, let me make it clear that this discussion is mainly in the spirit of analyzing basic gameplay functions, or like aesthetics and vibes mainly, because there's not really been any concrete information on the game's length, or things like skills or inventory breakdown or quest structure or like dialogue systems. But when your first reaction to the trailer is like, oh, is this Cyberpunk 2? Like, you got to give it like a second glance and try to learn as much from it as you can. And I'm doing something a little bit different this time. So instead of going over the dev's team history, this time I'm going to go into like my unfiltered thoughts on like the game that they're currently working on that piqued my interest. Anyways, enough rambling. Let's start with the latest State of Unreal showcase.
In our first game, The Ascent, our small team pushed the out-of-the-box UE4 tech to its limit to make a highly detailed, lived-in cyberpunk world. For our new game, No Law, a high-fidelity, immersive, first-person shooter set in the unregulated city of Port Desire.
Alright, sorry to pause so early, but I want to say something about how we've seen a shift recently of teams who primarily focused on isometric or 2D style games, and seen them shift into 3D, third person, or even first person style games, and they absolutely do a killer job of it. Take for example Larian with Baldur's Gate. Transitioning from Divinity to Baldur's Gate was a huge leap in production, but they pulled it off tremendously, and now they're one of the most loved devs now, as well as Owlcat Games going from, Warhammer and Pathfinder games to making the Expanse Osiris Reborn, which looks really promising. Even I covered it recently, NXL Entertainment going from Wasteland 2 and 3 to making Clockwork Revolution, which is one of my most anticipated games next year, and now with Neon Giant and No Law as well. Like, you can honestly tell from the jump that some of the teams now, they're just made to build masterpieces if they're given the budget to do so, and I hope No Law continues that trend as well.
We knew that our best starting point would be building a game around the core feature set of Unreal 5, because a small team like ours needs to work with the engine, not against it. We realized early on that out of the box wouldn't be enough. We had to push beyond the defaults and build our own workflow inside UE5 to make the world we wanted. We're proud of what we did with The Ascent, and No Law is the next step.
Hold up. But this game better be brutal. I better be able to crack some necks, Mortal Kombat style, because if you got goons out here manhandling people like this, kicking someone in the face while they down? Yeah, let me torture this dude and then snuff out his lights. Like, something with that kind of brutality in the cutscenes, it better be present in the gameplay. That's all I'm gonna say.
In that same approach. Our constraint was specific. We didn't want the largest world, but the densest. A city that feels lived in at every scale, where every corner carries history and every surface tells a story. Port Desire is shaped by human clutter, cramped market alleys, layered graffiti, worn stickers on electrical boxes, spaces that feel touched and retouched by the people that live there. Our goal was to tell a story with every frame, from a messy apartment where characters go about their lives to the skyline of the city. As a relatively small team, that ambition came with real challenges.
Yeah, I was gonna say, handcrafted interiors and exteriors with extreme detail on each surface tends to weigh down performance a lot. And from the looks of it here, as they're zooming out, nothing seems to lose detail and it still keeps rendering effectively. So this, no doubt, it looks like it's gonna be a heavy game. I just hope that with all the detail and fidelity, it still runs really well.
We wanted extreme detail everywhere, but we also needed stability and performance without hand optimizing each location. For us, the answer wasn't a single system, but a shift in how we built the world. We prioritized density over scale, and we built a pipeline that let artists handcraft spaces without constantly stripping detail back and without relying on procedural generation.
Alright, so as usual, if I just kept my mouth shut for like 30 seconds, I would have got my answer to that. So they're focusing on density over scale. That is a very, very good sign to me. If you go back and watch my latest gaming commentary video, I talk about why open world games often feel so bloated, and often the scale of some of those games is really unnecessary. And I feel like that if they made smaller maps with the same abundance of content sprinkled throughout the game, it would have helped a lot. And I understand that sometimes like technical restraints can prevent studios from doing really dense areas or locations, but I also feel like if that's the case, then just shift focus to a much tighter scope game and just like a much more tighter game overall, and that would also help.
Nanite is what made that approach viable. It lets us keep a high level of detail across surfaces without treating every asset as a trade-off between fidelity and performance. Our custom implementation of FastGeo in combination with the world partition system enables a seamless experience that never breaks. It allows us to have details in every nook and cranny and tell a million small stories. In fact, we have more objects in any given frame than the entirety of the ascent. With this workflow, we can preserve detail and then...
Alright, so on the zoom out here, you can see that there's a lot of flickering on the surface in the distance. So not as smooth as he's advertising, but still, I'll take that over choppy frames and like stuttering issues any day. Hopefully the pop-in doesn't get too bad, but I'm willing to see that as like a trade-off because I understand that no game's gonna be perfect, so I can live with something like that.
In every corner, from the smallest bolt on a freighter to the city as a whole, with no invisible walls and no loading. We build tools inside Unreal to help our artists handcraft the entire city, alley by alley, building by building, block by block. To show Port Desire's full range as an urban city overrun with vegetation, we needed dynamic lighting. From the cozy, lush midday sun to the darkest, the most dangerous alleys where even the bright neon light does not reach. The challenge was maintaining a fully dynamic day, night, and weather system without unpredictable frame times. Lumen gives the foundation for fully dynamic lighting, and Megalights let our artists focus on the believability of the space instead of tuning every single light source.
So a few things to mention real quick. First off, they talked about how they're using Nanite and Lumen, helping with, I don't know, I guess rendering and realistic lighting. If someone's more tech savvy on that stuff, then let me know the actual uses of it. But from how he describes it, it seems it's going to be helping with those two things, like rendering smaller details in the distance seamlessly and realistic lighting and maybe like other effects like fog or, you know, smoke. A lot of it looks really good in these shots. Again, I still don't know how it's going to run on like modern hardware. I don't see how this game wouldn't require a very high-end PC to have at least decent resolution and a stable 60 FPS, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Every believable space needs dozens or hundreds of individual light sources.
Something else I keep noticing is the amount of mechanical limbs or like, I don't know, I guess like neuro amp mods or like headwear visible from both the trailer and this demo. And that's not much of a surprise because this is a cyberpunk setting. I just hope that it's not like purely cosmetic and you can actually swap and upgrade different cyberware mods. That was actually one of my favorite things to do in Cyberpunk 2077 was all the theory crafting with different cyberware mods with the skill trees and testing it on like the hard mode. It was so much fun. Even though this is on a much smaller scale and it's not a $500 million game, I understand that. But maybe you can have just like one cyberware choice to choose from, like one mod, and the upgrade path for it is limited. Even with something like that, I'll be happy with it.
From the smallest blinking electronic warning light on a camera to the large neon signs above a marketplace. Megalights allow us to retain the visual fidelity bar we're aiming for while keeping performance considerations low.
Okay, so he has a really thick accent, so I didn't really catch that last part. But it sounds like they're using this Megalight tech, which I'm guessing is another tool they're using to realistically cast and reflect light off of surfaces. But still, man, all of this sounds way too good to run on standard, almost 6-year-old hardware. It just sounds too much. Again, like I said, as a matter of fact, the top comment on this video says, like, the minimum requirements for this game on PC are about to be crazy. I can already tell.
Once everything is dynamic, it starts to affect the gameplay in more direct ways. Players can shoot out a street lamp, flood a space with a flashlight, or they can leave an area in darkness and have the AI NPCs react to light and shadow, shying away from glare, searching through darkness, or escalating when something feels off.
Let's see who's got the bigger gun, motherfucker!
I don't like that. I don't know, man. That's kind of my pet peeve. This small little snippet already has me kind of unsure about how the NPCs are going to be reacting to stealth. It looks just like most other games stealth that's basically, it's like pretty basic despite some cool techniques. But for example here, like the enemy in the proximity of you would hear these suppressed shots taking out the lights and would instantly be on high alert. Not in a like a investigation kind of way, but like they would actively start looking for the threat. I hate that about most games stealth. They sort of have like this three-pronged phase. It's like step one, investigation, which I mean, they often, like in most games, it's like a question mark above the enemies, and it's meant to signal that the enemies are like sort of alerted to anomalies in the space around them. And then step two is like the actual caution phase, which usually is like a red exclamation mark above enemies, which would signal that they're actively hunting the threat. And then step three is like, just like combat. And my point is that like I feel like step one is almost always unnecessary in almost most games, and it's implemented across multiple difficulties as well. Actual intelligent enemy AI wouldn't question muffled gunshots and lights being extinguished near them. Like they would know what that sound means, especially if they're in a grimy shoot first ask questions later cyberpunk vibe. I already do not like this. Actually, I kind of hate it because it seems like every game follows this stealth trend, and it seems like it's a tacked on feature with some cool little gimmicks, depending on the game's skills, than the actual playstyle. But whatever, I get this stealth is like out of style now, and goes guns blazing with all these really cool skills is like the wave now.
To make the city feel alive, we leaned on the mass framework to drive our crowds. NPC density and types shift based on time of day, region, and weather. In the slums, a storm clears the streets. But in the more sinful parts of Port Desire, even heavy rain won't slow things down.
I gotta say this, I don't get the infatuation with NPC density, like especially if it takes to performance. I don't look at most of them anyways. I mean, unless it's in GTA and I go to the strip club. Bruh, alright, I'm gonna shut the hell up. What the hell is wrong with me?
Mass lets us simulate thousands of characters at once, over 3,000 at any given time, which is also more than the entirety of the Ascent. So the city always feels active, no matter where you are. We're also using MetaHuman, paired with our own character randomization system. Together with MetaHuman Animator, we can generate and bring to life thousands and thousands of variations of characters, so that the main characters and the extras in the background are all unique.
Alright, you know what? That's actually really cool. I gotta admit, because sometimes I get really tired of seeing the same 5 to 6 male or female NPCs. That's partially the reason I don't really care about NPC density to begin with. But if every NPC has their own look, it wouldn't break the immersion as easily. So that's actually really cool. Let's just see if they can pull it off though. Everyone can talk a really big game, but sometimes they'll have to scale things back later or revert really impressive immersive features or additions to make the game feel more immersive. So I'm gonna hold my breath because I hope it's actually true.
We wanted a world that reacted systemically to the player, without us having to hand place effects and destruction. Filling a world of this density and scale with contextual effects while maintaining performance and interactivity was one of our key challenges. By combining PCG and Niagara data channels, environmental effects are procedurally populated where appropriate. Wherever artists place trash or leaves, particles will spawn dynamically based on wind, weather, and player actions. Shoot a bullet or throw a grenade, and particles will move out of the way. We combined chaos physics and their own GPU-driven solution to support tens of thousands of moving objects simultaneously.
Oh, damn, that actually looks really sick. You think you got a pistol mod on that made that guy explode like that? This don't look half bad either, I won't lie. Also, another thing I don't really care about is particle effects and scattering debris everywhere. I just don't pay any attention to that stuff when I'm actually playing a game. So, cool, I guess, but I don't really care.
The result is a reactive environment where smoke lingers, embers drift, and broken glass stays where it fell. Creating NoLaw has been the process of finding where the engine ends and our custom tools begin. Achieving this level of density, lighting complexity, and systemic reactivity was previously impossible for a studio of our size. By leveraging UE5's latest tech to bypass traditional development bottlenecks, we have finally been able to build the uncompromised version of the world we wanted to create for years. We can't wait for you to experience it. Thank you.
Okay, so not bad. Let's do a recap. Well, actually, I'm just going to recap the things that actually matter to me. That last bit about particle and debris effects, I could care less about. But Density over scale, A+. I've been saying this for a while now. The studios need to relax on like the super max me massive open world games if they can't execute every corner of the world and every building of the world with variety. We have no indication as to how big Port Desire actually is, but I'd say, or I'd assume it's like no bigger than something like Phantom Liberty from Cyberpunk, which is like a tenth of the original game size, but way more versatile and like dense with the objectives and quests and detail and just about everything else. Bigger nowadays to me just means more bloated. So to see a concentrated city rather than a sprawling country of miscellaneous, tedious, like I don't know, just content and just stuff to do is a really big win for me. Then there was the seamless transition from interiors to exteriors and vice versa, while maintaining the detail and performance through transition with tools like Lumen and Nanite. Again, someone smarter than me is going to have to explain to me what their actual use of that is in practice, but to me, it sounds like they're using these tools to realistically cast lighting and maybe even smoke and shadows, as well as retaining the detail on each surface throughout the city, possibly even during weather changes. All of it sounds really good. Again, if you have that 5090 with DLSS multi-frame, it sounds really good. But for the rest of us peasants with 3 to 4 to 5-year-old hardware, ouch. Like, I really hope that they offer multiple modes at launch so you can choose where you're going to lose out on things like performance or fidelity or even smaller features even. I just want a game that runs well in the big 26. Well, I guess 27 or 28, whenever this game releases. But is that too much to ask for nowadays? I mean, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And then lastly, we have the stealth. Yeah, I already went over it. And at least from the very small snippet, I'm not impressed. Of course, it's just one example of how the stealth could be used, but still, I can spot a shallow stealth system from a mile away. You can't confuse me, but I do hope that they do confuse me, because maybe that's just the enemy AI reaction on like easy mode, or like maybe that was a regular grunt enemy's reaction, and a high-tier cyberware implant maniac might catch you from the jump and start frantically searching. But I mean, I don't know. I don't have high hopes for the stealth in this game. Whenever you want to put your best foot forward in a tech demo, you usually want to show like the most impressive parts of the game. And if they feel like showing that little snippet of the stealth was the best they had to offer, it just, I don't know, it makes me question it. Now, as for the dev diary that they released, I went ahead and watched it real quick just to see if they had anything interesting. And the one thing that they mentioned that piqued my interest was the environmental storytelling. I usually get really skeptical when devs, especially like the modern devs making these open world games, start talking about environmental storytelling, because I feel like it's just a buzzword. But I absolutely understand its importance in theory. Let me give you an example real quick. I actually wasn't prepared for this. All right, so like, let's say like you take the average player, for example. They usually avoid many of like the side activities. They might miss a lot of the small details poured into additional content outside like, you know, like the main story, right? Let's say that player, one time they stop at like a large graffiti sign on like the underpass of a bridge, and next to it is like a note. And then they pick up that note and they briefly read the first sentence. Then they get a little bit into it and they discover the history of the town that they're in. And they might move along and forget about it completely and continue with the main quest. But I feel like their subconscious wouldn't forget about it. And this is what's so important about small details in environmental storytelling, is that player who usually runs right past every building and like broken down house, they might take the time to look into one from time to time, whereas before they wouldn't have even done that. But just out of mild curiosity, let's say, all of a sudden it becomes like a little small habit and they finally find something really cool, like really cool detail about like the culture of a region in the game or the history of a faction. It could be anything. But all it takes is that one time to change how this person approaches the game, which is what makes these handcrafted small details environmental storytelling so crucial. So even though the devs didn't really specify what they're doing with it in this case, to hear them mention it is good to see that they're actively thinking about it and focusing on it, on how they can flesh it out in the city of Port Desire. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in this video is actually pretty negative. It's the reason why I left it towards the end of the video. But the studio behind No Law is Neon Giant, and they're owned by Krafton. I mean, that's unfortunate, because now I trust this project a lot less with that information. Not because of the team working on the game, of course, but because of those slimy at Krafton. If you somehow have been in gaming and you don't know about the drama with Krafton and Unknown Worlds on the development of Subnautica 2, then firstly, let me congratulate you on living under the biggest rock in the world. Like, goodness, how do you not know about this? But secondly, I couldn't possibly explain all of this, nor do I really want to. So I'm going to recommend going to Kira's channel and watching all his videos on the situation so you can understand why I'm making such a big deal out of this. Krafton's record with baffling decisions from leadership and the ridiculous need to constantly interfere in the dev process, like I'm just worried that they might try something with no law. I don't know. They'll probably be a little more sneaking than asking ChatGPT how to bloat the game with microtransactions. But I mean, I wouldn't put anything past them. Like, these companies, they don't learn. They never do learn. So I'm just bracing myself that even after something like a full gameplay showcase is shown, there's some BS about the game might come out. I'm actually really intrigued by this game, but it still has me like it's a mixed bag for me. And I really think what would put a lot of my concerns at ease is the only acceptable next step is a full, uncut, or at least I guess accurate representation of the gameplay. That's my rule of thumb now. Going forward, it's like, no matter how much I really want to like a game and how much I'm excited for it, I need to see fully uncut, unedited, like snippets of gameplay that just show what the game is actually like to play, not these cut little, segments of gameplay. It's like 5 seconds here, 5 seconds there. I want to see what it's actually like to play the game. As always though, we'll just have to wait and see. Let me know your thoughts on the latest no law tech demo and dev diary, as well as the trailer in the comments. I would say rate it on a scale of like 1 to 100 of how it looks to you right now. What you like about it, what you dislike about it, what you would change about it. Just let me know all that in the comments down below. But yeah, anyways, that's it for me. I'll see you next time.